Hey guys, what is up? Is MELG Gaming here. In today's video, we're going to be asking one simple question. This question is on everyone's minds. What happened to The Last of Us Part 2's multiplayer? It was talked about, it has a release window of 2023, but there's been no gameplay, there's been no further information, there's only been concept art, and the release window of 2023. So I figured I would go ahead and read through an article with you guys and see if we maybe figure this out. So starting out the video, we got what happened to The Last of Us Part 2's multiplayer. Fans are wondering what happened to The Last of Us Part 2's multiplayer with little information from Naughty Dog and no release date on the horizon. When developer Naughty Dog's The Last of Us Part 2 was announced back in 2016, fans assumed that the game would have an online multiplayer component similar to the Factions mode that launched The Last of Us in 2013. Factions takes place in the world of Last of Us and follows two rival clans fighting for survival. It was an engrossing multiplayer option that further fleshed out The Last of Us world building and lore, adding even more depth to the franchise. However, players eager to return to multiplayer in The Last of Us Part 2 were met with bittersweet news when developer Naughty Dog announced that the multiplayer mode would not be included, and that instead it would be developed and released as a standalone game. This announcement was almost 4 years ago, and since then there has been almost no news about the game's development or its expected release date. Now this was posted on September 26, 2019, and it says, "We wanted to address multiplayer in Last of Us Part 2. As we've stated, the single-player campaign is far and away the most ambitious project Naughty Dog has ever undertaken. Likewise, as development began on the evolution of our Factions mode from Last of Us Part 1, the vision of the team grew beyond an additional mode that could be included with our enormous single-player campaign. Wanting to support both visions, we made the difficult choice that The Last of Us Part 2 would not include an online mode. However, you will eventually experience the fruits of our team's online ambition, but not as a part of The Last of Us Part 2. When and where it will be realized is still to be determined. But rest assured, we are as big a fan of Factions as the rest of our community and are excited to share more when it's ready." Naughty Dog. Now that can actually kind of be argued a little bit, the way they've kind of left Factions, the original Factions in Last of Us Part 1. There's a bunch of modding issues, there's a bunch of hackers, there's some ping issues, and there's some game exploitation going on. For anyone that plays it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's kind of weird to see them say that they care about it whenever they kind of left the first one just kind of on its own. But if they're really putting that many resources into it and that much work into it, I'm pretty excited about it because the first one was just amazing. One of the best multiplayer experiences I've ever had in my life. In 2019, when Last of Us Part 2 was still in development, Naughty Dog addressed fans about the state of the game and their plans for multiplayer. The developers posted on Twitter on the Last of Us Day, a date commemorated by Naughty Dog to celebrate the release of the first game. They explained that their scope and vision for what they wanted to include in the online mode grew to such a level that it was no longer tenable to include it as a part of The Last of Us Part 2. Adding that players would eventually experience the fruits of their team's online ambition. The developers didn't give a timeline, instead said when and where the multiplayer mode will be realized is still to be determined. Then exactly a year later, the developers broke the silence with another post about their much anticipated multiplayer project. Co-president of Naughty Dog and creator of Last of Us, Neil Druckmann, took to Twitter to update fans but gave very little information aside from asking the community to be patient. At this point in development, it seemed like Naughty Dog's vision was at a standstill and that project might be in trouble. On the same day in 2021, in an official blog post, Naughty Dog directly addressed fans' concerns about the lack of updates. They explained that development is still ongoing and that they were actively looking to hire talent for the project as they grew their new team. In the post, Naughty Dog said that they love what the team is developing and want to give them time to build out their ambitious project. During Summer Game Fest 2022, Neil Druckmann took the opportunity to update fans again. He explained that the multiplayer of The Last of Us game will take place in San Francisco, California, with a variety of new characters. Druckmann said that the multiplayer game would be just as big as Naughty Dog's single-player titles, and ended his statement by saying that players would hear a lot more about this game next year. Later that day, Naughty Dog released even more information in another official blog post. The developers explained that the game is truly a massive undertaking with a very ambitious scope. Given that this is a full-scale, fully fleshed-out, standalone multiplayer game, this was coupled with the release of the game's first concept art. Although it was encouraging to see the artwork of the game for the first time, and players certainly appreciated the update, there was little indication of how far along in development the game was, and more importantly, when fans could expect a release date. In January of this year, Naughty Dog provided fans with another update, again through an official blog post from Jugman. He expressed how excited he and the developers are for the standalone multiplayer game, as well as for the franchise's upcoming 10th anniversary this June. Fans were expecting big news about the multiplayer The Last of Us title on the 10th anniversary, but Druckmann made it clear that the news would be coming later this year instead. While still being vague about the game's development, Druckmann did share another piece of concept art in an attempt to tide over the hordes of restless fans. If Naughty Dog's update cycle is any indication, the studio should be revealing more news about the game on The Last of Us Day this year, September 27th, 2023. However, whether there will be any concrete information about the game's development remains questionable. When it comes to the development of big projects from AAA studios, it can take time before progress is made public, and often there are unforeseen obstacles in game development. With no release date on the horizon, all fans can do is wait patiently and be cautiously optimistic about the Naughty Dog's The Last of Us multiplayer release. So basically, guys, we don't know when it's coming, right? But if we kind of take a look at what they've been saying and when they've been saying it, we can come up with a decent date on when we should get some more information at the very least, right? So September 27th, 2023 on Last of Us Day. I personally think it's going to be sooner than that. I personally believe that now that Season 1 of the Last of Us show is wrapped up, we should be getting some more information really, really soon. And maybe September 27th is a official release date, or maybe it's a beta launch or whatever. But I personally believe we've got new info coming right around the corner. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'm curious. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like rating. It is much appreciated. And I will see you guys in the next video.